Alrighty, hey guys, welcome to talking about the Bill of Rights and the first 10 amendments. So today we are just going to discuss the first 10 amendments so I can explain them to you. Remember that the first 10 amendments equals the Bill of Rights. They're the same thing. So if somebody comes up to you and says, what's the name of the first 10 amendments? You could say the Bill of Rights. Or if they come up to you and say, what's the Bill of Rights? You could say the first 10 amendments. Now, an amendment, what is an amendment? An amendment is just an addition or an add-on to the Constitution. So when something is added on to the Constitution, that's an amendment. Because in 1787, the Founding Fathers, they wrote the Constitution, and the Constitution is a plan for the government. But if we ever want to change the Constitution or add something new, we have to do an amendment. So why do we amend the Constitution? What's the point? Well, the Constitution needs to change because the United States is constantly changing. The world today is not the same as the world back in 1787. So our plan for government needs to change with the changing times because as the United States changes, the Constitution and our plan for government needs to change. So therefore, we need to add amendments so we can change the Constitution. Now, one of the big reasons why we have a Constitution today is because of the group, the Anti-Federalist. Remember, they have an opposite group called the Federalists. The Federalists loved the Constitution. They wanted a strong national government, and they thought the Constitution was perfect, so they wanted it to be ratified. But the Anti-Federalists, they did not want to ratify or approve the Constitution until a Bill of Rights was added, because what they were scared of was the national government would become too powerful and would end up taking away people's rights. So they said, we won't approve the Constitution, we won't ratify the Constitution until our rights are guaranteed by the Bill of Rights or by the first 10 amendments. So, the Bill of Rights, it's the first 10 amendments. So let's go through and let's see what your individual rights are. Your First Amendment rights, your First Amendment, it has 5 individual rights in it. You can remember this as RAPS, R-A-P-P-S. The first R stands for religion. The second stands for assembly. Assembly means you can meet together as long as it's peaceful. The P stands for petition, which means you can complain about the government when you want to complain about the government. That is your right. The second P stands for press. Press means newspapers or news TV stations. We have the freedom to communicate on the news and to tell people about what's going on. And then finally, the S in RAPS stands for speech. You have the freedom of speech. So, in religion, you can believe what you want. You can meet together with a group of people in assembly. You can complain about the government with petition. You can write whatever you want to write down in the press. And you have the freedom of speech. This is all of these are your First Amendment right. Your Second Amendment right is your right to bear arms. This means you have the right to own a weapon just in case you need to protect yourself. The government can never take away people's weapons if they are following the law. So if you're following the law, you have a license for the weapon, you bought it properly, then you have the right to have a weapon and own a weapon so that we can protect ourselves. Our Third Amendment is no quartering of soldiers. Remember back in the day when the king was ruling the colonies, he would let the redcoats stay in the houses of the colonists. Well, we never wanted to see that happen in our country, so when we made the amendments, our Third Amendment right was no quartering of soldiers. Fourth Amendment right, no search and seizure without warrant. A warrant is like a permission slip that's given to the police by a judge. So the judge hears what the problem might be inside the house or inside the car, and then the judge will give them a warrant, which is a permission slip to search your house and to take whatever they need as evidence. But if the police do not have a warrant, then they do not have the right to come into your house or search your car or anything like that. That is your Fourth Amendment right. Your Fifth Amendment right is your right to what's called due process. That means the law needs to be fair. So you have the right to remain silent. You don't have to speak against yourself. You don't have to speak in court. That's why sometimes on court shows they say, I plead the fifth. It means you don't have to say anything against yourself if you don't want. And also, there's what's called no double jeopardy. That means you can't be convicted of the same crime twice. So let's say you steal something and you go to court and they say that you are innocent, that you did not steal anything. So you walk outside of the courtroom and then you yell to everyone, "I'm so glad I got away with stealing that." Well, they can't take you into court again because they already found you innocent. There's no double jeopardy. Your Sixth Amendment right is you have a right to a speedy trial and a lawyer. Okay, what speedy trial means is the government can't just throw you in jail for years and years and years without giving you a court case. They have to give you a court case. And also they have to provide some type of lawyer. Seventh Amendment right is your right to a trial with a jury. This makes it more fair because if it was just one judge, that's not very fair. But if there's a jury of people just like you, then it makes it a lot more fair. Your court case is a lot more fair. Eighth Amendment is no cruel or unusual punishment or no excessive or crazy fines or bails. What this means is that the government can't punish you in a really cruel or mean way. They can't tear you apart. They can't boil you in water. They can't do any of those types of terrible things. They can't torture you. And what no excessive or crazy fines means is that the government can't charge you lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of crazy money. They can't charge you like $5 billion. They can't do that. That's cruel and unusual. Your Ninth Amendment right. Your Ninth Amendment right says that citizens have more rights than just the rights that are listed in the Bill of Rights. So just because in the Bill of Rights it doesn't say you have the right to get married, you still have that right. Or just because it does not say that you have the right to be happy at work, you still have that right. So the Ninth Amendment right kind of covers all of the things that the 10 Amendments don't mention. So even though it doesn't say it in there, you have the right to be happy, you have the right to get married, you have the right to privacy. Those are your rights in the Ninth Amendment. And last but not least, you have the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment says this: national and state governments have separate powers and they have some shared powers. Also, any right or power that's not given to the national government is given to the state government. So in the Constitution, here's an example. In the Constitution, it says nothing about the national government being able to say if a state is free or slave. That means that that should be a state's decision. Because if it's not a power given to the national government, then it should be something given to the states. That's the 10th Amendment. And finally, what we call the amendment process. So we have these first 10 amendments. They're called the Bill of Rights. But in total, we have about 27 amendments. So how is an amendment made? How do you add something to the Constitution? Well, Congress, if 2/3 of Congress, okay, at the top left there, if 2/3 of the Congress agree about an amendment idea, or if 2/3 of the state agree about an amendment idea, then they can send that idea to the states. The states, as long as 3/4 or 75% of the states agree to it or vote yes on it, then it becomes an amendment and we add it to the Constitution. Okay, so this has only happened about 26 times, so not tons of times. Okay, so let me rephrase all this. If 2/3 of Congress or 2/3 of the states think it's a good idea, okay, 66% of Congress or 66% of the states think it's a good idea, then they'll send the idea to the states. The states will vote, and if 75% of the states say yes, then it becomes an amendment, and it's added to the Constitution. So for the STAR test, remember this: 2/3 plus 3/4 equal an amendment. It's the easiest way to remember it. You don't really need to remember much more than that. 2/3 plus 3/4 equals an amendment. Okay. Last thing to cover up here, and this is extremely, extremely important. Remember when we wrote the Declaration of Independence, we had grievances with the king. Remember, a grievance is a problem that we had with the king. So our problems were taxation without representation, The king has too much power. Number 3, colonists cannot speak against the king. Number 4, the Quartering Act that the king did. Number 5, the king allowed for search and seizure without a warrant. So a redcoat could just come into your house and take what they want and search what they want without proper permission. And the final one, the king didn't allow for a trial by jury of peers. He didn't allow for a trial by jury. He just had a judge, which he controlled the judge. So that's not very fair. But check this out. When the Founding Fathers wrote the Constitution and added the Bill of Rights, we took care of all of these grievances so they would never happen again. For instance, taxation without representation, that'll never happen again because all states have representatives in the legislative branch. The king has total power, that'll never happen again because we have a system of checks and balances, where each branch checks the other branch to make sure that nobody has too much power. Colonists cannot speak against the king. That'll never happen again because your First Amendment right of freedom of speech and petition. We can say whatever we want about the government. We can complain all we want. That's our right. The Quartering Act will never happen again because of the Third Amendment. Allowing search and seizures will never happen again because of the Fourth Amendment. No warrant equals no search. And finally, no trial by jury will never happen again because of the Seventh Amendment guaranteeing us that we can have a trial by a jury. So this is just a short video on the Bill of Rights, which are the first 10 amendments, the amendment process, and also the grievances that we had with the king were taken care of by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.